I never know what I'm going to be teaching about, really. I just sort of at the beginning of the week, I didn't really have, and I just do my own sitting and reading and writing, and I know that grace just will deliver something worth taking 15 or 20 minutes of your time, something that would be soul food for you. So today's teaching, it's really a reflection on a wisdom teaching of Jesus from and for a contemplative community. Because the fact that I sit and listen with the ear of my heart to whatever grace has in store for me, I do it because I want to have something nourishing to speak about. So I'm listening from this contemplative community all week, and I'm also listening for the community. And this was the last thing that was on my mind, but I started looking at the one thing leads to another, and I started looking at the image of the shepherd and the sheep in three of the Gospels, anyway, in the Gospel of Matthew and John and Luke. And, you know, uh, shepherds and sheep, this is the 21st century. Most of us, those images don't say much because, we're not, very few of us are shepherds. I would guess none of us are shepherds. Maybe none of us have eaten lamb or, what does this image mean and how can it speak to people who are, you know, in a contemplative community, trying to live a contemplative life, a deeper life, in a world that is not geared for that. Well, so I was looking into them, and it was interesting, because I've always, the good shepherd and the lost sheep, and if you read, I started with Matthew and went to John, and then finally went to Luke, and it's good shepherd, and wolves out there, and trying to get all the sheep into the fold where they're safe, and all that imagery. And it was, Matthew was speaking to his community, John was speaking to his community, and they all heard, whether they heard Jesus or heard recounts of Jesus, they sort of molded it to serve those people at the time, just the way I listened to serve to speak something to you that would be nourishing for you. Well, when I got to Luke, the whole thing went off the rails, and I'm going to read what Luke has to say because Luke doesn't say anything about the Good Shepherd, which is very interesting. And this particular, where he talks about it, comes in the 15th chapter, and it's like a triple play of lostness. He talks about the lost sheep. He didn't talk about the Good Shepherd. He talks about the lost sheep. Then he talks about the lost coin. You lost the coin. You got to just find it, and then he talks about the lost son, the prodigal son. So three great parables. It's like boom, boom, boom. And this is the first one. And I think it starts speaking to me in my situation, and I think it would speak to you. So this is the parable of the lost sheep. I'll just read you a translation of it. And this is Yeshua, Jesus, speaking in the context of people who understood shepherds and sheep. And so he was using that. We'll translate that, but this is what Jesus said. Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus. The tax collectors and the sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." So right away, they're freaked out about it. Welcome sinners, tax collectors. Those would be Roman tax collectors. And sinners are there listening to Jesus. Jesus told them this parable. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. You have 100 sheep and lose one of them. Doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. Then he calls his friends and neighbors together and says, "Rejoice with me. I have found my lost sheep." Yeah, listen to this again. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country and then go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. Then he calls his friends and neighbors together and says, "Rejoice with me, I have found my lost sheep." Yeah. Now, back then and now, this could strike you as a little strange. After reading Matthew and John's focus on the good shepherd, because he didn't call this shepherd good. He and in those parables, Jesus sort of identifies with the good shepherd. He doesn't identify with it here. It's very interesting, but they focus on the good shepherd. And there's a lot of talk of the wolves that are always prowling around, and which is the reason why herds of things sort of group together, and then so they're harder to be gotten by the predators. Starlings do that. You see, thousands of starlings flying together because that's a kind of defense. This kind of flocking mechanism is actually one of the first things we do before fight or flight. We flock to other people that can help us, and so, but they're big on stressing the wolves, and you have to get these guys into the protected area. And why does Luke focus on the lost sheep, and then later the lost coin and the lost son? So this is about lostness. This is interesting. It caught my attention because I'd read the previous ones. I never looked at the three of them together, but I think it's just to reflect on it a little bit, just to go back through it. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country, out in the open, no protection, and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? Well, no. Most people would call this guy the mad shepherd or the reckless shepherd, which in both cases that would be closer to it. I mean, who would leave the 99 to look for the one? You'd say, well, 99, it's not worth the risk. It's not worth the risk. It sort of like seems mad to people. And I think there's some method in that madness, though. There's a lot of sides of Yeshua, of Jesus, in this teaching. And if we're not even talking about the Gospel of Thomas, if you read the Gospel of Thomas, it's a flat out Zen master in there. It's just upsetting. You read these things and you just say, well, no, who would want to do that? So this mad shepherd kind of parable is just like it seems like madness in to the good son and the prodigal son, that the father gave all this inheritance when the son asked for it, which is totally untraditional, and then he wasted it all, and then came back and he welcomed him back and threw him a party. That just blows your mind. Blew my mind. I was like the good son. I was always working. I wasn't out boozing it up. So these are the way Jesus works. He gives you parables like this. It's like the laborers in the vineyard parable. The guys work all day, and then the guys come, for a couple hours, and the guys come in at the last minute and do, half an hour's work, and the owner of the vineyard pays them all the same thing, which is like a fortune. And the guys grumble about it. It doesn't seem fair. That's a pattern in Jesus' teachings, because he's really trying to fry the circuitry in our rational mind, to shut down the rational. Rational mind cannot understand any of these parables, which is part of our problem. It's part of the problem, I think, part of the sadness, really, in being a Christian, because the gospel cannot be put in practice. It doesn't really make sense to the rational mind, because you got a guy speaking from this non-dual mind we talked about, we've talked about the childhood operating system, which is about survival, and then the strategic operating system, which is about, you know, being more fruitful in our interactions on the surface of things. And then we talk about the sacred operating system. Jesus is coming from that non-dual perspective. So it's very hard to understand a non-dual teaching. It's probably impossible from the rational mind. But through the lens of a contemplative, through a lens of people who even have begun to practice some kind of non-dual practice like meditation. And again, as Rumi says, there's hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. He's not just talking about the prayer mat and the ground. He's talking about there's 100 of ways to kneel and kiss the ground of your own being. See, how you see is what you see. Yeah. And so I want to look at this from a contemplative practice. When you look at this same parable through the eyes of non-duality in a contemplative practice, which if you have a practice, you're starting to get a little taste of it. It begins to sound like wisdom. So let's look at it through that. Look at it through that lens. He's focusing on the lost sheep here, and the shepherd seems to be a little reckless or mad. Maybe I like to call him the mad shepherd. This is the parable about the mad shepherd and the crazy shepherd, but really the non-dual shepherd. And so let's look at it that way. And so let's focus on the lost sheep. And if you look at it with a contemplative, non-dual view, there's a couple of levels of teaching built into it. On one level, the shepherd. What is the sheep? What's the shepherd and what's the sheep? Well, on one level, the contemplative level, the practice level, the sheep is your own attention. Who hasn't sat in even one meditation, even your first time, and all of it, you're sitting to just, really the model is like the image that we saw, and we'll show it again before we're through, the image of, just sort of everything drops into your center, into the heart. You're dropping, the Zen guys and also the Eastern Orthodox guys talk about dropping body and mind into the heart. It's a kind of drop to someplace deeper. Well, we all know all of a sudden the attention takes off and it's thinking about the soccer game, at 2:00, or it's thinking about the fight you had with your husband. It goes in 360 degrees. The sheep goes off. And then basically every form of a meditative practice, you bring the sheep back. All right, you're bringing the sheep back. All right, and what you have to let go of, the 99 sheep you have to let go of, is all the stuff that you think you should be thinking about right now instead of being here. I should be outside mowing the lawn. I should, the to-do list, all those other concerns, the rent is due. That's all true. You're having problems with your own body, problems with your marriage. That's all your life. But for these times of contemplation, we're letting all those guys go. Those are the sheep leaving in the open field. Okay. So that's the first. On that first level, then the lost sheep is your attention. Okay, and actually, the shepherd is your intention. Your intention to sit down here. Your intention to come here for 90 minutes, leave the world, and feed the soul. Have some contact with the soul. You see. So that's one level of looking at it. And really, there are wolves. There are wolves. I mean, not the kind that, they see out in the real field, but in this field of consciousness, this field of life, there are wolves. And I've talked about it before, I'll talk about it again. Our culture is trying to steal your attention, especially with the media that we have now. It is a great gift, but the curse of the media is it steals your attention away from what really matters, your own soul. Biden says he wants to save the soul of America. Well, that's a great intention, but nobody even thinks about it anymore. Our attention's been totally stolen. You can watch 6 or 7 seasons of sitcoms that go 20 or 30. You'll go all these episodes, and there's not any mention of soul. It sort of disappeared. So even to say the word soul is sort of mad now, because a lot of people say, "Well, soul," But that is true, and there are wolves now. I want to give you a little view in terms of practice of the wolves in Aramaic and also in Arabic, Satan, and the Aramaic word refers to Satan. Satan means distraction. So they're not talking about the guy, with the horns and in the flames and the pitchforks and stuff. They're talking about the evildoer is distraction, is pulling your attention away from what's really important. That's really what's saying. So when the Ayatollah called America the great Satan, he was saying, "You're the great distractor." Well, he's not far off. I mean, I love this country. I'm staying in this country no matter what happens in the election. I'm staying put because there's so much good to be. We've discovered a lot, and we're a force for good a lot of times. But we're getting distracted. And Hollywood, as much as I love Netflix and those kinds of things, because you can see great things there. But if you're not aware that all of a sudden you can end up just online all the time looking at the screen and, I don't have time to sit for 20 minutes. I don't have time to just do the soul work. Whatever that is, going out for a walk is great soul work, you see. So distraction. So 3 Ds that follow from that, because once you get distracted, and if you're living a distracted life, and then doubt creeps up. And doubt is not bad in itself. As a matter of fact, both Jesus and the Buddha, they said, "Don't listen to me. Don't believe me. Be curious. Doubt me." The Buddha even says, "Don't believe me at all. Doubt me." So doubt is actually the beginning of science, really. And so doubt in itself is not bad, but self-doubt, doubting that you're okay as you are, that you have what it takes. That kind of doubt, all the teachers, they talk against that in whatever words they do. The doubting that you have something precious in you. See, that's self-doubt with a capital S. That's a wolf. And then if you actually go down that road, that you just think, well, I don't really have what it takes, but maybe if I do this, maybe if I do that, maybe I get $1 billion, et cetera. But that doesn't really work. You can look and strive and hustle for worthiness all you want, but it just doesn't seem to add up. And so then you get discouraged. That's the second thing. So doubt can lead to doubting of the self, doubting that you have absolutely at your very center what everybody's looking for. No exceptions. No exceptions. If you doubt that, then you start to get discouraged because you're trying to find it other places. And that discouragement can lead to the third wolf, which would be despair. And there's a lot of that going around. That's what's underneath oxycodone. That's what's under the drug epidemic. That's what's under the apathy. So doubt, self-doubt again, it's not just, scientific doubt. Well, I don't know if that's true. Let's test it out. That's good. We need to be a little bit more curious and don't take things served up right away. But this doubt is where this doubt in your own true nature, that at the very center, there's an amazing grace there. Everybody says that in one term or another. At least the people who are on my altar do. Not everybody else does, of course. But the people that the contemplative traditions talk about, don't doubt that you have what it takes. You just have to uncover it. You have to actually shift your center of gravity there. Doesn't mean you have to leave the world. You know, you're a parent, you're living in this world, other people are suffering, you want to be in this world, but you want this to be your center of gravity, you see. So those are definite wolves, though. But you know, there's another way to look at the lost sheep. Now, Luke was supposedly a physician, and and the physicians are healers, and so that would be the second way to look at the lost sheep in terms of a kind of a healing. Who are the what are the lost sheep? Well, they're these wounded or orphaned part of ourselves. Now, this is a Jungian interpretation, but I think Jung had it right that the lost sheep can be these parts of ourselves that have been lost because of growing up. They weren't acceptable in the house. They weren't acceptable at the school you went to, not acceptable in this culture. So you had to shave them off. You had to drop them into what I call the hurt locker, the unconscious, the deep freeze. You know, the pain of having somebody say you can't be like that. You know, just the amount of compassion I have for people who are born in a female body, but they have a male spirit, or born in a male body and have a female spirit, and they can't be that. The immense suffering of that, of having to put that part of themselves in the unconscious, and then how, and you know, that's a wound. So these are wounds, and we have to shift our understanding of wounds. Let me put on the screensaver at this point just to see if I can. Let's see if we can. Yeah. This was, by the way, this was done by a Catholic nun in the west side of Chicago. My sister went to her to learn how to meditate. And this was the picture. She was also an artist, and she drew this, and she painted this picture, and I got a copy of it because this is what she does when she sits. This is she taught my sister centering prayer, Christian kind of meditation, Christian based, and which I do myself. And this is what the nun sees inside. This is the picture, and it's quite amazing. I have it up right to my left on the wall, and it's icon. No, it doesn't matter. You could be. It's a Buddhist icon too. Any Buddhist would recognize that, or a Sufi, or whatever. Notice how it's structured. Notice the darkness at the bottom and the darkness around. This shape is a mandorla. It's what you call this egg shape. And the mandorla is the shape. Whenever they show something sacred in like the Greek and the Russian Orthodox icon makers, whenever they have Christ or some sacred person who's into the sacred, they're always in a shape like this. Okay, and because it's and this particular, and that's also where the Easter egg comes from, this same shape, because the Easter egg is going to be the birth of something new. This is where you go to be born anew. And notice there's a little, if you can see it, there's like a little head up there, and then that thin stream of light that goes down to the big ball of light, and also the colors are the chakra colors, if you notice: red, orange, green, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. So she's looking at the whole spectrum of consciousness here, which we go into. But that center, that light inside the green, is the heart. It's the sacred heart. It's the noble heart, as the Buddhists call it. And it's a dropping down into that. And then all of a sudden, you're out again. And then that's what you come back to when I say, basically meditation is return, release what took you away from it, and then dropping down into the center, even if it's only for a nanosecond, and then you're lost again. We're all lost sheep. Okay. Now, down at the very bottom of that picture is the blackness. And that's where everything that we have to shave off from ourselves to be accepted goes. It goes into that unconscious, no light there. And And a lot of times we do it ourselves because these are parts of ourselves we don't want anybody else to see because we've been made to feel ashamed about it. Okay, so the wounds are down there now. The Jungian approach, and I think Luke has it, is as long as there's any part of you down, you could have 99 sheep there, right in the center, but as long as there's one part of yourself that is in the darkness that needs to be brought into light, you're going to go after it. It's reckless. In the sense, rec means to think about, to measure. You see, so reckless doesn't mean you're well. If to other people you look like. I mean, how do you explain what you do here to other people? It just seems like madness or stupidity or wasted time. But that going down into the darkness, and that's what you do because your eyes are shut mostly. And darkness is always a symbol of what you don't know. You see, what you don't know. But over time, if then doing this day in day out, we do it one time a week here, but the rest of the week, if you can show up and take some time to align this, notice the alignment of this, that you align with the inner divine to just leave the surface of things and go down and just be there. Striving ends when you do this kind of meditation. You don't strive to meditate. You just show up and drop down. You see, and then things over time, those orphan parts of yourself do come up. It might not be pleasant when they do. I had somebody here with me this week, and they left this morning. But last night, the guy dreamed about all his ex-girlfriends. When I came in to sit this morning, he was all shook up. You all had those kind of dreams, where you wake up with some kind of dream like that, and you just want to. I said, I bet you wanted to climb under the covers to get not get out of bed. He says, exactly. We've all had that, but that's really grace. That's really something coming up to be healed. And I gave him that perspective, and I sat him actually right over there, to actually do his meditation, looking at that picture. I said, anything that comes up from the depths is there for healing. That's maybe a bunch of lost sheep coming up, So even in dreams, you see. And so when we go into drop into that, we're not thinking now. We lay thinking aside for the moment. The mind thinks, the heart ponders. Totally different thing. Not ruminating. I said, don't go thinking about all the dream. I just drop into where the dream came from and see where it leads you, and just hang out there. The heart, if you just leave thinking, then the heart kicks in. The heart ponders. It just somehow resonates with what's going on, and he had got an amazing lead out of that. So that's this. I'm going to leave this up with. We're going to segue to meditation. And now, so I'll leave this up just as an icon of whatever form you're doing, Buddhist meditation mostly, or maybe you're doing centering prayer. Tomato. You're leaving the surface of things and going down into this ball of grace. You could call it the Buddha seed, the Buddha mind. You could call it Lumen Christi, as they say in Greece, in the Greek Orthodox, the light of Christ. Tomato. Just it's stopping thinking for a while and just taking a break and going down and let the heart work on things. If something comes up from the darkness, you don't have to do anything about it. Just abide with it there. We're gonna work on abiding in the next couple of weeks. Just abide with whatever comes. You don't have to do anything with it. Okay. This is not doing, this is being time. Okay, I think that's good enough for today.